record right now as well. Just want to share the mission statement really quick in regards to what CCIM is all about and what it is that we do. The mission of the CCIM Institute is to elevate our members to the highest levels of success in the commercial real estate profession. And that's exactly what we've been trying to do in regards to our virtual rooms here and everything that we've been doing. Really what we've been trying to do is trying to bring information, bring relationships, at this time where the government's saying that we need to stay at home, and we want to do what we can in order to continue business and make sure that all of our members and all of those involved in the commercial real estate industry have all the tools that they need in order to be successful. And CCIM.com is a wonderful resource page for people to go to. If there's any questions regarding anything that we've been talking about, staying up to date as to what's happening in the marketplace with the government, any new initiatives, businesses opening, it's a wonderful place for people to go and visit. This is our virtual roundtable that we've been co-hosting for probably a couple months now, along with myself of SoCal CCIM. I'm the president. My name is Gary Martinez. I'm a commercial real estate broker that mainly focuses on industrial properties. And within our membership, we have about 150 members, and we cover all of Orange County along with Inland Empire. And we have Helen Chong with the NorCal CCIM. Helen?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Helen Chong, and I'm the Northern California CCIM Chapter President this year. And our chapter actually comprises of Sacramento all the way down to Oakland, San Francisco area, as well as Silicon Valley. And we have about 250 membership and currently, and we're really proud, and thank you so much, Gary, for inviting us to do these virtual roundtable. And I cannot believe it's been 2 months already.
It's going fast. Sure. And so thank you for your help and support. And so everyone who's participating in today's meeting, this is just what our agenda is going to be looking like. We're going to be opening up the meeting, which we're doing right now. We're going to do some chapter introductions. We're going to introduce our special guests, where we're going to have a roundtable with them. We're going to open it up for Q&A, closing remarks, and then we'll go ahead and end the meeting. And so the whole purpose of today's meeting is again to make this as open as possible and to have as much participation as possible. So while we're doing our roundtable discussion, all of those that are participants, we want to make it interactive. And so if you have any questions, if you'd like to partake in the discussion, please raise your hand and we'll notice you. We'll go ahead and unmute you. We want to allow everyone during this time to go ahead and chime in and kind of give their thoughts and ideas. Then we're going to hand it over to our panelists, and then again, the Q&A. If you have any questions for our panelists, if you would, please use the Q&A box, and we will get to your questions and make sure all the panelists answer your questions before we close out here. And so, Helen, would you like to introduce your leadership team?
Sure. So our board of directors, we actually have about 18 people, and I'm only featuring the top leadership because we don't have enough room for everybody. But we have our past president, Aziz Khatri, and he was the president for 2019. And again, myself is a current president. And we have Tim Tran, who is our president-elect this year. And Tim Tukalski, he is a CPA and also CCIM, and he's serving as our treasurer and secretary, as well as Teddy Swain, who is our technology officer. And obviously, we all know that our organizations cannot really survive without our sponsors, and really truly appreciate all of their support during this time. And we have our platinum sponsor, Senspa San Filippo, and they are a CPA firm in the Bay Area. And we have also our gold sponsors, Heritage Bank of Commerce, Crexey, Bangerter, Chase. As well as our silver sponsors, we have Business Finance Capital, as well as Chicago Deferred Exchange Company.
So for SoCal CCIM, this is our list of board of directors. I want to give recognition to each of them. Each of them are working hard behind the scenes to keep everyone informed and keep us, give us their insight as to what we could be doing better to make sure that we're doing the best job we can for our members. And also like to recognize our sponsors, our platinum sponsors, CoStar Group, AAR CRE, our gold sponsors, Asheville Associates, Asset Preservation, Baker Law Group, Coast to Coast Escrow Service, Platinum Wealth Group, and our silver sponsor, Fidelity Bancorp funding. Again, just want to thank our sponsors. There's no way we can do the things that we do without our sponsors. And if anyone has any questions, they're all open for business. And we encourage everyone to utilize our sponsors and support them as they are supporting our chapter. And so this is the part of the discussion here where we want to have a little bit of an open discussion amongst us and our participants, and kind of get an idea of what's happening out there in the workplace. And so naturally, a big conversation that we're hearing out there is the design. What are things going to look like? How are things going to feel as businesses start to reopen, as we start to go back to work? And maybe a lot of us have never stopped going to the office, but there are certainly some things that we can do to make it as friendly as possible to make everyone feel as comfortable. So Helen, what are you seeing out there?
Well, I definitely have started receiving some emails or inquiries about like, hey, how do we renegotiate our lease? We realize that we don't really need such a big space anymore. So looking for a much smaller space. I find that I talk to a lot of people saying that they feel pretty comfortable working from home nowadays. So even my husband, who works at Apple, and a lot of also up here, a lot of employees from Google, Facebook, now they're all telling their employees, go ahead and stay home to work from home for the next few months, and some even for the rest of the year. So this, I truly, truly believe that's why today's topic is so relevant, because this is going to completely change the way everybody works. And then in terms of our children, we kept talking about when are they going back to school, right? And I honestly think that, I was like, even if we reopen our economy and next year, in times about like end of August, I don't know. I have a gut feeling is that probably only half of the students going to go back at a time, and maybe they're going to take turns, stagger the schedule. So, this is like kind of like constant topic nowadays. Like, how do we spread out everybody so that we don't have too many people at one place? So, so I really appreciate the fact that we're going to have today's panel to talk about that. I think it is super relevant, and we're going to see a lot of changes. There are going to be a lot of new normals over here.
Yeah, for sure. And again, for any attendees that would like to participate and just kind of talk a little bit as to what they're seeing out there, feel free to raise your hand and we'll go ahead and unmute you. And on my side, again, I'm a commercial real estate broker that focuses on industrial and office properties. And one thing I found as far as industrial, that a lot of my property owners really aren't doing a whole lot as far as reaching out to their tenants or doing some additional cleaning. I mean, a lot of them are just sending a little letter, just reminding everyone to be mindful of the situation that we're in during COVID. But a lot of them feel as if it's not their responsibility, it's the tenant's responsibility to make sure that their employees and the visitors and guests are in the safest environment they possibly can be. And industrial is a little bit different because, really it depends on how the business is set up. You think about like a manufacturing, a CNC shop, where there's a lot of machinery. There's not a whole lot of people, even though there is, so some conversations that are happening, but it's a little bit different, versus say a company that has an industrial building where they have a lot of office workers inside as well. Certainly the office area is a concern. But as far as industrial, we're not seeing a lot of our property owners really doing a whole lot. On the office side, they are protecting a little bit more. They're making sure that their janitorial and everyone that's cleaning the property is a little bit more visible to make sure that their tenants are feeling a little bit more comfortable as to what's happening out there. Of course, they're doing more sanitary stuff and they're just doing everything they can to kind of keep everything clean. And so we have Earl who has some information to share. Earl. Go ahead, Earl. You put yourself on mute here. Okay, Earl.
I think I got it.
There you go.
And,
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh boy. So what I wanted to point out is that it's very convenient to go ahead and shift all the responsibility to tenants and such, visitors and so forth. I work with Barth Calderon, which is a law firm, an asset protection law firm in the city of Orange, and they point out that it is possible for somebody to get coronavirus on your property and then to come back around and to accuse you of negligence or having some type of responsibility for them having acquired the germ on your property. So they're actually working with their clients in order to reduce the risk of somebody from the public doing that. So it was probably a good idea for property owners to be mindful of that possibility and actually take more action than what you're describing.
I would agree, and then that's one thing that we're encouraging our property owners to do, and we've created like somewhat of a template and a checklist for them to go by. And so some owners are deciding to use it, some are deciding no, they don't want to even address it, and so which is a little concerning to your point. But you know, it is. You know, we are in unprecedented times, and we are seeing different property owners making different decisions. And so with that, I'm going to do a quick poll question, and this is more for our panelists to get an idea as to who our audience is. I'm going to go ahead and open up this poll here. And there are two questions in this poll. The first question is, what property types do you mainly work with? And is it hospitality, industrial, and it's a multiple choice. So if you deal with more than one type of property, go ahead and complete or click on as many properties as you typically work on. Just click on the ones that you mainly work on. And the second question is, what are the main concerns most about returning back to work? And again, as we talked about, a lot of people are already back to work, but if are there any concerns that you have while you're in your working place? And so I'll go ahead and leave that poll open. So if you would, everyone, please just go ahead and tell us who you are, and so we can get an idea of who our audience is. And so when our panelists are talking about the various topics or talking about whatever it is they're talking to, they could maybe gear it a little bit more towards our participants that are on this call. And so go ahead and leave it up for another 5 seconds, and let's do a little countdown here. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, go ahead and end the polling, and let me share the results. All right, panelists, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so majority of our participants are having to deal with office. In second place is retail and multifamily. And in regards to concerns, the biggest concern that they have is people not obeying social distancing rules. And second place and tied for a second is all are concerned, but I'm over the stay-at-home order, which I've been hearing more of. Yeah. And they're not really concerned about any of this, and they just want to get back to work. And so let me stop sharing the results. All right, panelists, just thank you again, for participating in today's event. And there's no way we could do the things we could do, without the, professionals like yourself to kind of help us navigate through this process. And so I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit of who you are. We're going to open it up for Q&A to our participants. We have a list of questions that, that we wrote down as well. But Pinky, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I'm Pinky Khatri, and I'm a project manager at K2A Architecture and Interiors in Oakland and San Francisco. I actually specialize in schools, so K through 12 and community colleges, which, is of concern, as Helen mentioned, people, having their kids go back to school so that they can go back to work. I know in many places that they're trying different things, and so we can discuss that later. But that's who I am.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Pinky. Thank you. Anthony?
Hello, I'm Anthony Cataldo. I'm with Lowney Architecture. We're an Oakland-based architecture firm with offices in Oakland and Honolulu. We do work throughout the Bay Area. We were hoping to open up an office in Silicon Valley this summer, but that's probably going to get pushed off till next year based on everything going on. We were founded in 2003, and we do a variety of different project types, including multifamily housing, office, retail, industrial, and hospitality. So I look forward to speaking with the panel.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Anthony. Thank you for participating. And Jamelyn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamelyn Shaw. I'm a design director at Gensler in Newport Beach, California. And I've been with Gensler for 17 years. And I do mostly commercial interiors. I am also the Southwest Workplace Technology Practice Area leader for the region, and I support the LA office, San Diego office, Newport Beach, Denver, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and that's it. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for participating. Thank you for being here as well. And so, Anthony, I know you had a couple of slides that you wanted to share. Do you want to go ahead and share that now?
Yeah, I can share those.
Go ahead and kick this off here.
Yeah, excellent. So I just had a couple slides to share about Lowney Architecture and who we are, so you have a little bit of context behind the direction or the input that I'm sharing with the panel. So we are, as I mentioned, 45-person architecture firm in Oakland, California. We work on a variety of different project types, and we have a very collaborative team. So it's been very interesting moving to a remote environment. Some projects that you might be familiar with in the Silicon Valley, as we did the Pruneyard Shopping Center renovation that was completed last year, the Whole Foods on Blossom Hill Road. We also work with supportive housing projects. So we did the Second Street Studios project, and currently the Corvin housing project in Santa Clara broke ground about 3 months ago. We're working on 240 units of multifamily housing with the core companies on West San Carlos Street in San Jose, and also are big into the hospitality world and are working on a project of 150 keys on South De Anza Boulevard. In past pandemics, we always look for the silver lining. So what has the world got out of it at the end? And through things, we're always going through learning and growing. And when we had the cholera outbreak of the 1850s in London, the modern sewer system was invented. And that was a huge improvement that, today's systems are based off of. Prior to the 1880s, a lot of bathrooms were decorated the same as any other room in the house, with carpet and drapes and things of that nature. And infectious diseases in the 1930s led to housing reform. So through all of these things, the world became better from what we had to go through and learn through these very challenging times. So I'm curious to see how we'll evolve in the world that we go back to after this, how it changes from the world we left a couple months ago. As designers, we're always looking at space and form, and there's lots of different things that come into us developing those spaces. As we come out of this, things that are going to be extremely important are taking into consideration the times that people are coming to and from the offices, the patterns of how people are using their workspace and the flow even around the workspace. So I think those are all things that we'll talk about a bit later on the panel today. And one thing that's very important is designed to protect the vulnerable, including the programming of spaces, airflow systems, biometric sensoring that may be possible using some of our smart technology, and then voice controlled systems that have already been implemented for years in many types of situations, and how those become more robust and are implemented across the board. And then this could be one of the world's greatest experiments, working remote. We have firms that were already 100% remote. We had firms similar to ours that allowed our staff to work remote on an ad-neces basis if they were sick or if they had childcare or something of that nature. And then you had practices that really didn't accommodate for much remote work. So we have learned a lot through the last 2 months, and some of the pros are employers have really learned to trust their employees, and learn when you give your employees that trust, it really empowers them to go above and beyond. And one thing that many people were concerned about is efficiencies and would those be lost. But with the trust and empowerment, we've actually found in many cases people are at very similar efficiency level outside of the office as they were inside the office. New technologies had allowed to make this all happen. I think we all agree 10 years ago would have been really, really challenging with the same circumstance. And the technologies we have today has allowed us all with robust VPNs and other ways to connect via Teams and Zoom to do the things that we're doing today. And those are only going to become greater as time goes on. Building culture is something that I think we've all, different companies try to figure out, how do we maintain our culture as we go remote? And our firm has done 2 meetings a week that are all hands, one that is more focused on business and one that's more focused on culture. Beyond that, we have daily team meetings with all of our groups for culture. And I think we've seen things from happy hours to game nights to birthday celebrations, both in and outside the workplace, to try to maintain that culture. And if you told me 3 months ago that I'd be interviewing someone, onboarding them, and then not meeting them face to face for 2 to 3 months, I would tell you you're crazy. But actually, many people in the world have had to do that in these last few months, and we've successfully onboarded someone with full first day virtual meetings. It was a very interesting process that has turned out to be very successful, and we're looking to do it again. So really excited about that. Some of the cons that we found in terms of remote working are, one of the reasons office space, the floor plates have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the last decade, is because people realize that when you put people together, it allows for creativity to take place, not only from creativity happening in the work environment, but that spontaneous creative areas where people cross one another in the corridor, at the lunchroom, and they have conversations that spur new ideas and come up with creative processes. So I think that's one of the cons to us working remote, is how do we create those types of environments where we can have those same creative interactions. When you have a client, an architect, a contractor all in the room trying to solve a problem, there's a different energy than when we're all on Zoom together. So how do we foster that, and how do we create that with new technologies moving forward? The other demographic I'm concerned about are those people 1 year out of school or 2 years out of school. How do we give them that mentorship and shadowing, job shadowing, so they can learn how to be professionals? And I definitely think that's an area to grow. I know we've been investing a lot of time in mentoring remote via Zoom and other technologies, but it's not quite the same as overhearing that conversation that your team members having in the workplace. So how do we do that? How do we teach people? Well, maybe a percentage of the workforce remains remote after this. So those are all things I'm interested in. I want to see what the other panelists have to say regarding that. And that was just my brief introduction, so you see the area that I'm coming from with some of the input that I'm sharing today. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. That's definitely gives me a lot of questions. I mean, I think it certainly reminds me of exactly what we're dealing with here. Is how do we get back to whatever we call normal, and how do we make people feel comfortable? And so, I mean, each of you are staying really busy in different aspects of different projects, and so. I mean, what are the common themes that each of you are hearing from your clients? Is there a common theme that you're hearing from everyone, or concerns that seem to be pretty common in your clientele? And so, Jamelyn, what are concerns, and what are you working on the most these days?
Right now, we're helping our clients with coming up with a back to work strategy. I think that's their most important thing right now for them is, what are we going to do when we go back to the office? So we're definitely helping them with doing surveys, workshops, interactive workshops with their employees, making sure their employees are being heard, and then creating a solution for them, a strategy that would help them out. One size does not fit all. And every organization has their own culture that they really want to make sure stays in place when they come back to the office. So that's what we're working on right now, is helping these clients get back to the office.
And Pinky, with you dealing with schools, I mean, it's a big topic and a big concern, and you know, our kids need to be educated during this time. But how do we make our parents comfortable at this time?
Well, that's difficult because a lot of the schools are still working through their own issues of how are they going to do this, and we're offering them, you know, some solutions, keeping in mind that most of these solutions, especially for schools, are going to be short term. You know, this pandemic isn't going to go on forever, thank goodness. And you know, we will come out of it. That we are offering them, you know, ideas such as how to place this desks in, you know, in a classroom, having smaller classrooms, or excuse me, smaller, you know, number of students in the classrooms, which then translates into, okay, we're going to have classes only every other day. You know, we have 12 students come in, and then, you know, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the others come in on Tuesday, Thursday. How does that impact, you know, their actual learning if they're constantly, you know, they're not coming in every day? For, you know, elementary school, it's difficult. For high school, it's a little bit easier. They can still go home and study and do all of that. So we're working with them with those solutions. Other ideas are, you know, just like, especially elementary school, they don't understand the distancing. They, you know, you can tell them, but they just, children won't get it. So if you have visual cues, you know, like on the ground, you put some tape to show that, okay, this desk, you sit here, you don't move further than that. In the multi-purpose rooms or the cafeterias, you know, putting up screens. And it seems a little distancing, but it's, again, something that can happen. When the weather is good, they can go outside. And really being outside is probably the best way to get children to stay apart. And, you know, you have that fresh air that sort of cleans everything, for lack of a better word. Otherwise, it's just really hard. Having clean, you know, more cleaning, having janitorial staff come in every day, not changing the students, but having the teachers move in and out at the middle school, where the teachers would come in, and so that way you're not having to clean constantly. Not sharing equipment, and you know, when they go out to play, not letting them go on the jungle gyms, because those are really hard surfaces that will, you know, the coronavirus stays on there much longer. So those are some ideas that we've given them. Really, sanitizing is the best, you know, best solution long term. Probably upgrading their HVAC systems, you know, to include more cleaning, you know, having fresh air, having operable windows, which is something that we try to do anyway, but having it more obvious so that you're getting fresh air in again. So those are just some of the few ideas we've come up with to help them through the short term. Long term, there are a lot of other design elements that can be incorporated to really help in the event something like this happens again. Hopefully not, but again, you know, you never know. In 20 years, we'll all forget what we did now. So if we have some design elements, as Anthony was saying, already in place, then we'll be ready. We should always be ready for something.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And just as a reminder to our participants, if you have any questions, go ahead and use the Q&A box, and we'll go ahead and get to your question. Pinky, you mentioned something that I think that's been a topic for a lot of property owners, and it's something that I've been talking about, which is having to do with fresh air and trying to bring in more natural air from the outside, you know, changing our HVAC systems to allow that. And so, you know, and we think about a mid-rise office building, or just an high-rise, or even just an office building in general. And I mean, a lot of them don't have windows that could be just popped open. I mean, is that something that property owners should be looking at a little bit more, and maybe having some screening, some mesh there that allows property owners to do? And I mean, how costly is that? Anthony?
In terms of office product, we definitely, there's MERF 13 air filters and adjusting your fresh air intake, so you're 100% fresh air, similar to what you'd be doing in a hospital type environment. What that means is energy, it's going to cost more in order to heat and cool these buildings, because pushing air through these filters does take more energy, and the fresh air intake means less recycled air, which is very important right now. Another concern we have is you don't want air necessarily flowing across one workstation to the next workstation. So, but that speaks to more future design. Are we starting to look at more like hospital type setups on the way air flows through space, versus having air outlet in one corner and a return on the other side. So things of that nature we're looking at in terms of future design. But in terms of today's design, it's mainly about trying to figure out how we can help our clients retrofit their current spaces, working with furniture vendors to set up partitions and look at the way they might be able to phase different employees coming in and out of the space at different times, sanitation stations, things of that nature, and then direct, maybe single directional travel through the office space. So that way there's less opportunity for people to cross one another as they're going between aisles and things of that nature.
Jim, anything to add to that?
Completely agree with Anthony as far as doing using furniture solutions to help with social distancing, visual cues like what Pinky mentioned. Environmental graphics will definitely be a key, very important in the workplace, especially good reminders, and these circulation paths are going to be crucial as far as how it's controlled. But at the same time, I think one thing that we are looking at Gensler is just making sure that we still have a positive experience in such a controlled environment. I think that's the key too. We don't want people to think that when they get in the office, it's like it's a hospital space, or it's you're visiting a doctor's office. We want to make sure that we're still creating a positive environment that people want to get into, and it really sparks innovation and creativity. So trying to create that balance between having a controlled regulatory environment with design, giving a really positive design experience is going to be crucial. And I think that's what us designers are trying to work out, is how to balance all that.
And each of you mentioned furniture. I mean, what kind of furniture are we talking about? We're talking about microfibers that that don't grasp onto, I guess, viruses or bacteria, or are we talking about higher walls, or what are we talking about when we talk about furniture?
I think we're thinking about, it's more about finishes, materials that don't transfer bacterial surface from one place to the other. Barriers, visual barriers, whether the panels do go a little bit higher, things of that nature.
I think we want to avoid going back to the 80s or 90s from cube farms. So, and how you create these barriers where you have some transparency through parts of them, maybe some sound absorbing materials also, but at the same time, non-microbial, so they're not attracting anything to stick to them, easy to clean.
That is what I hear as well, is that it went from open concept just a couple of years ago, and now a lot of these offices are going back to, just like what you're saying, not necessarily the cubicles, but there's going to be some kind of barriers now.
So with the spacing, additional furniture, the barriers, removing the open concept, which allowed a smaller square footage per person, are we seeing that businesses are going to require more square footage to fit their furniture and for additional spacing for their people? I mean, have you had any conversations from your clients that are they just don't have the space to do the things that you're suggesting, or the things that they need to do?
Well, what we're thinking it's redefining the workplace right now. So it's more about the flexibility of using your space. So we're expanding now the office footprint now to your homes. So your homes would probably be used for more of the focused task, the tasks that you can do on your own, or whether you're doing more virtual meetings. And then all the collaboration, the more social, the learning, those kind of tasks are going to be done in the office. So it's really just redefining the program for the office. So I think offices are not necessarily going to shrink. I think it's just going to be redefined, because now the meeting spaces are not going to be holding 28 people in a small, it's probably going to be half of that. So you're probably going to need more meeting spaces, more screens, more of those impromptu areas that you'll need to collaborate, because you need to be spaced out more. So I guess it's just redefining the program for the office.
You know, one thing I'm hearing, you know, from some of our clients that we placed into like downtown areas, say like downtown LA, you know, where there is a lot of congestion, a lot of people that are in the area, and a lot of those employees that go to downtown LA, you know, take the bus or, you know, take the metro to the areas, you know, and I'm just thinking about the times that I was in the metro going to downtown LA and how packed it was. Have you had any experience in any public works, you know, and what can they be doing to help with that? I believe right now they're only allowing essential workers, but as things start to open up again, I mean, what can people do, or what can they do to minimize, you know, the density of people, or can they?
It was interesting on Channel 7 News the other day, they were saying they're anticipating an extra 45-minute in the daily commute to work and from work, because everyone will be back in their cars, not wanting to use public transportation off the bat. So that's really scary to me, to actually think of that much more time that we're not investing in our lives or work, that we're sitting in traffic. I think as a solution to that, some of this expansion of the workplace where people do continue to work remote is going to be, so we won't have that mass. Even if we took 2 days a week, that's 40% less traffic where people are working remote versus in the office. So if there's, you know, solutions of that nature that we need to do through best practices, I think, in order to not overcrowd the office space we do have, and to allow for that social distance, but also not overcrowd our highways and our freeways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we have a question here, and this kind of relates to some of the stuff that I have as well. And so the question is, how do you carefully start reopening offices when the supply of PPE, such as hand sanitizer, masks, and other items are so limited? And you know, and I know when I go to the market, I'm looking for a hand sanitizer, I'm looking for something. I mean, they're totally out of supplies, and I know our janitorial companies are waiting for supplies as well. Is there a solution to that, or is it something that they can't open until this is in place, or are there mechanisms that will help with sanitation where that would help if hand sanitizer is not necessarily available at the time?
That's a good question. I think you need to have those protocols in place. It's like sending someone to a job site without a hard hat, right? Without that hard hat, they're not going to go to the job site. So hopefully in the next 30 days, as we do reopen, the products are available to keep our employees safe in their different work environments.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's quite interesting that besides these offices, we talked about the public transportation. In some of the Asian countries, right now, public transportation is basically their daily life. There's no way you can drive over there. So what they are doing right now, they are using some antibacterial type of services where the bacteria doesn't really stay on. And I thought that was quite interesting. And on top of that, instead of using only manual labor to clean the surfaces, they're actually having like robots now to go in and just clean the buses or the subways, and instead of like an hour, it takes only 10 minutes now. So I think some of these things might be maybe need to be utilized here as well.
Definitely. I think Asia is ahead of the game when it comes to how they're responding to post-COVID. So we Gensler is really looking at our Asia offices to see, what's working, what's not working, and making sure that we're using that as a lessons learned type of way of learning how to deal with it in the U.S. for sure.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. I mean, each of you have offices, in different parts of the country and around the world. And so, I mean, I know it's a case by case basis, but the same practices that we see over there in Asia, I mean, is that stuff that we can just transform over here? Or, I mean, is stuff that's happening in San Jose be the same as happening as in Los Angeles? Or, I mean, or is it specific towards area and the amount of infection that's in a particular area? I mean, is it all the same, or is it very different?
I think there's some practices that we can transfer. I mean, we can translate over to where we are, but again, we just don't know. We're all in it we're all in the same boat, and we just hope that we can control it as much as possible and learn from other countries on how they respond.
In some Asian countries, I also saw is quite interesting, and the creativity that they have, because sometimes, again, go back to Asian country because the density, right? The population is so high, and it's almost impossible to say like, let's spread out everybody. But they have to do some kind of more of a preventative measure. For example, a lot of children that go to school now, they all wearing like covers over their faces, like plastic covers, in addition to masks. And then we also saw some kids, they wear a hat now with the stick sticking out, so that they do practice some kind of social distancing. And of course, we also see it in some of the grocery stores nowadays, or some of the retail shops, like you only have one way. You have arrows on the floor where you can only go one way. When you wait in line, there's space out nowadays. So there are just so many different ways that I think for us never really thought of it, that we start seeing other people. It's like, oh, okay, this is what we can do as well.
Definitely, and they take advantage of the technology that's out there as well. I mean, they're pretty much almost 100% cashless. Everything is digital transactions, which we're getting there too, with Venmo and PayPal and Zella. But they also have, now when you enter a building, there's a QR code, and they can see where you've been in the last 2 weeks, whether or not you've been in areas that have COVID cases and such. So whether or not you can enter the building. So those are things that we're looking at. We don't know if we'll get to that point, but it's good to see what other countries are doing to control the spread for sure.
And that reminded me that some of the design is that before you walk through the entry of the building, they actually sanitize you, your clothes and everything. And even the shoes, they actually wipe off your shoes. You have to go through some kind of sanitization of your shoes before you step into the building as well. I mean,
Definitely.
do you see that will even be implemented here in the?
Well, we've had conversations with landlords as far as, I mean, building entry is going to be super important. We want to make sure that everyone is safe within the buildings, whether you're going to be, your temperature is going to be checked right when you get into the building, or, there's a little screening area where, instead of badging in your card reader, it's a matter of, getting your temperature checked. And, I think there's going to be a whole procedure into how we enter buildings, and that's definitely going to have to change. I think that's what's going to be what we'll see more when we get back to the office.
There's a preschool in Southern California, actually. Some relatives have sent their son there, and what they're doing is they have like a mudroom type of situation
exactly.
where before you enter, they actually make the children change their shoes, remove their jackets right there, so that when they enter, and then they make them, wash their hands and do the hand sanitizer. So that's one way of, that may work in terms of just entry, as Jamie Lynn was saying, that's one place. I had read something in Germany. There's a high school that before you enter, they actually do a test, do a COVID-19 test, and they can give you the results in like 15 minutes. And then they give you a badge that, okay, today you passed, you're good. And they're planning on doing this twice a week. And it's voluntary, to go back to school is voluntary at that particular school. But that's something that, maybe something that would happen. I don't know how invasive we want to be in terms of people's, privacy. It's, again, in Germany, it was voluntary, but if you want to go back to work, you may have to, and go into the office, that may be something that you have to do. So again, maybe some people would prefer to work from home to kind of not be placed in that position.
Yeah, and we have a question here from John Baker, and I think his question actually relates to what a lot of property owners of office buildings are concerned about, and investors of office buildings. I mean, his question is, what I hear from many people is that they don't get as much work done while working from home. How does the manager make sure his or her employees are being productive if they are working remotely? So a concern that I'm hearing is that the efficiencies from working from home have increased, where office space is not really needed. I heard that the open concept of office layouts is dead, and so we're hearing a lot of this, but again, to John's point is, how does a manager, make sure that their employees are working and being productive and are doing what they're paid for? Any suggestions?
I think Anthony touched upon it as far as like the trust factor, making sure that your employees are working. One thing that we do, and I think we tend to do when we're at home, is we like to over communicate with our teams. So I'm constantly on Zoom calls and Skype and Teams, and just because everyone wants to just talk to someone and make sure that we're working on deadlines, we're on the screen. So maybe it's having a little bit more of those daily touchdowns every a lot more frequently than just one, I guess you could say.
I completely agree with that. What we are finding is the more senior level staff, they're very driven. They're homeschooling their kids for 2 or 3 hours a day, but then they're working at 9 or 10 o'clock at night to make up for that. So they're working toward their deadlines. For some of the more junior staff, we're using tools like Trello to identify task lists that people have to get done that day. At the beginning of the day, they have a check-in, and at the end of the day, they have a check-in. And the goal is, it's not an 8-hour workday anymore. It's let's check off this list and then I'm done. And that might happen in 6 hours or might happen in 10 or 12 hours. But the employees are task driven to finish those items on their list for that day. And those are part of a larger goal, so they can also see what their week-long tasks are and what the bigger picture goals are. So trying to implement systems like that, so people are less about the clocking the hours and more about getting the jobs done.
You guys made a really good point. At the end of the day, I think for any organizations, micromanagement is going to be far less. It's all about project management. How can you manage your associates and to make sure that they finish the task? So all these tools, again, Trello, and even Facebook comes up with Workplace, and all these other project management tools will become more and more useful and needed for all organizations. I think even children, for example, my children, they also need the time blocking their calendar so that they are on top of it. So I think it is a great education for our kids to know that, it's more about task oriented. It's not about how much time you are on a project. And we do have another questions here. From Shilpa, as businesses and places open up, there may be an increase of lawsuits claiming people were exposed to COVID, and due to this, may get sick or hospitalized and claim damages. This may be a real problem for business owners and landlords to have to defend these claims. For example, restaurant owners, retail strip owners, office building owners, etc. In light of this, landlords should look at making sure they have proper asset protection in place, such as LLCs, to protect their real estate. They may also want to consider increasing their insurance liability coverage. What are your thoughts on this? I think at the end of the day, so that's why they probably need to hire you guys to redesign the portfolio to be as safe as possible. Is there going to be like certifications saying like this is COVID-19 safe?
And instead of CAS certified, it's COVID certified. Who knows what's going to go on?
That's true.
I would definitely say consult your legal department and see what they have to say about things like that. We can only design to the tools that we're given and the standards that we have. And hopefully the world is all moving in direction that, you know, we want to be successful together, but there's always going to be some fallback somewhere there. So you need to protect yourself and your assets. So consult your legal counsel.
It's just, so is there like a standard? I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was just wondering if there is a standard, government standard that you have to follow now because of COVID-19.
I'm not aware of a.
Yeah, I haven't heard of a government standard. I mean, you just use your, I mean, to me, you use your common sense. You have, I mean, you have building codes, you have, you know, green codes that do address some of these things, but I haven't seen any government driven code issue that would tell us that we need to do this or that. So
yeah,
and who's to say it probably come.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Anthony, you brought up a good point in regards to some type of certification. I mean, I could see, you know, some type of certification, you know, that shows, you know, some type of industry as being COVID ready, and making sure that the systems that are in place and making sure that this person has the knowledge and the background and experience and education on how to deal with COVID. I can certainly see that. I think that's. I don't know if we necessarily want to push anything, but I definitely see that's something that could potentially come down the road. And what about restaurants? I mean, we hear a lot about restaurants reopening up. I mean, a lot of people are concerned about dining in. Should they be concerned? I mean, is it really, you know, 100% up to the restaurant owner to make sure everything is sanitary, or is you know, is there any systems or anything that a restaurant owner could do to make their customers feel a little bit more comfortable while they're dining in?
Well, we work with several restaurant owners. We have one that's in construction right now that was due to open next month, but that's been postponed. Cities similar to Oakland have shut down several streets in order to allow for public to gather in more outdoor space. So I think restaurants can spill out into some of those public spaces with outdoor seating and things of that nature, especially as we move into the summer months, in order to at least bridge a gap for several months. Because one thing that's critical to restaurants is certain density in order to maintain a profit margin where they can stay successful and open. And once you social distance all the tables within a restaurant, it's going to be very, very hard for them to meet those thresholds for the long term. So anything we can do with outdoor spaces, you see some examples, I think it was in Denmark, where they were doing greenhouses on the street, and each individual family would have their little own greenhouse where they could dine out in. So there's opportunities like that we can look at. We could do outdoor tents or other things within the street areas as we look at some of those public spaces and how we can utilize them while they're not being utilized by traffic and other things. And who knows, maybe in the future, some of these public streets that have been closed will remain closed, and we'll have more pedestrian promenades, and could make for a wonderful place at the end of the day.
Is there anything new, you know, through this time, past few months here, of you working through this COVID? Is there anything new that each of you found to be really positive, or anything that you came across that just like, hey, you know what, this is something I really didn't know I could see this working long term, or something I really enjoy working on and other people are working on as well? Is there anything positive or anything exciting that you found during this time?
Well, personally for me, one thing that I've personally got from it is just the empathy and that we see with each other. I think with collaborating and meeting virtually and getting a glimpse of everyone's home, and just brought a lot of humanity back into the workplace that we lost. I think just always being in the office, keeping that separation between home and office, and just having that transparency, I really love. I think a lot of Gensler employees mentioned it a lot too. It's just a little glimpse of people's lives that we really like. We love seeing people's kids in these Zoom calls. So I think is something I hope that we keep continuing when we go back to the office, for sure.
I can't agree with you more. It is that somehow I feel like a lot of us secretly enjoying this moment, and then we're afraid to say it. And then all of a sudden, this past few days, start hearing more and more people say, "I actually really enjoy it because now my kids see what we do, and then we can watch what they're doing." It is a lot more work, but at the same time, we cut down on the commute, cut down on a lot of things. So, in some way, strange way, we are kind of like, "Oh, this is not too bad." I do have a question regarding multifamily plumbing, or maybe this applies to offices as well, because there's this incident in Hong Kong where the coronavirus was spread through the plumbing system in an apartment building. And I'm wondering if you guys have any sort of like ideas or recommendation of that, and is there something that we can prevent on going forward that something like this can happen? What happened is like the virus actually went through the plumbing, and then actually it came from, I think it was like the toilet. So nowadays everybody in Hong Kong, when they flush, they make sure that the toilet seat cover actually is down.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I don't have any ideas on that. We do a lot of multifamily, but haven't heard of that particular circumstance. Definitely something to talk to a plumbing engineer about and try to figure out.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we're doing, is trying to leverage our partnerships with MEP firms and our medical specialists. We're not medical experts, so for us to give things that are medical solutions would be something that's not within our realm. So yes, just trying to leverage those partnerships so that we can create solutions that really make more sense, and hopefully our engineers are on top of it as well. They're doing the same studies, same assessments as us, as far as like how to really create solutions that will help us not spread COVID.
And do you think that a lot of these designs that you guys are going to implement is going to be a lot of touchless thing? For example,
Definitely.
elevator, the buttons, you know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a touchless experience for sure. More voice activated. I'm already hearing that landlords are now going to open up their egress stairs because probably people are not going to be using the elevators as much as well. So
yeah, you'll get your steps in while going to work.
Exactly. There you go. Exercise.
Everybody will be healthier.
We were even thinking on the multifamily side, because all buildings are required to have multiple exits. You might have one stair for going up and one stair for going down, so you're not crossing other people's paths through the building as you're exiting it. And that could be similar in an office environment where one stair is dedicated for going up and the other one for exiting. So things of that nature.
Very good. Well, as we wrap up here, Jamelyn, if someone needs help, what's your ideal client? I mean, what is it you're looking for? So what do we go to you for?
We're well, Gensler does everything. So, but we're happy to help if you need help with coming back to work and planning a strategy that will help with your employees feel safe and comfortable. Feel free to give me a call, email. We're happy to help.
Great. And in the chat box, maybe each of you can just put your name, number, email, any information that you want to put there in case anyone has any questions. They could go ahead and reach out to you. And Anthony, what's your ideal client? What should we be calling you for?
Well, we'd love to help with any office space if you have a renovation or a new office space. Also on the multifamily front, about 70% of our work is multifamily housing. So if you are looking at a site and want to look into the future and how things might change, we're happy to start with the early phases of laying out all the way through construction. We do some industrial, so we'd love to help with any industrial projects also.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anthony. And Pinky, what's your ideal client?
Ideal client are any schools, K through 12, community colleges, charters. We're more than willing to help you now and in the future when you're redesigning any kind of retrofit to meet current conditions. We're more than happy to help and give you ideas on what you can be doing.
Yeah, I would imagine like if somebody have hired your expertise to improve their building, their property value probably would be a lot more better than other buildings that do not have these kind of improvements.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank each of you, and Pinky, I may have a referral for you. So,
wonderful.
and actually for each of you, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Is just I think I have something immediate for Pinky possibly, and so again, want to just thank each of our panelists. Thank you for your participation today and for giving us your wonderful insight. And so reopening is a big concern, and and definitely your insights is information we could take back to our own clients, so we could best educate them the best we can, and have some information. And then if there's anything that we need, we know who to reach out to. It's always good to have sources. So thank you, each of you, so much. And so. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and then I'm going to go ahead and start closing everything out here. And so, there's each of your pictures. There you go. Those are the nice photos that I was talking about earlier. All right. And so just in regards to our participants or to membership, and so again, at Southern California, we have our members. And so if you are a member of NorCal CCIM or San Diego, LA, Hawaii, or any other CCIM, if you would like to become a member of SoCal CCIM or NorCal CCIM, each of us have a reciprocal chapter membership agreement. It's just $25. So if you'd like to explore or increase your visibility and the people that you network with and interact with, just for $25, you can be a member of either group. And so, and if you have any interest, here's some information and the websites for NorCal and SoCal on how to become a member. And for future events, each of us are having our own events and have various topics that we share and that we go over. And so I know Helen's doing a wonderful job with everything that she's doing and staying very busy and making sure that all our members are informed. And so great job, Helen.
Thank you. And as a matter of fact, I just typed in the chat box. So our NorCal chapter, we have our monthly meeting right after this from 10 to 11. It's basically state of commercial real estate in the Bay Area. So we have a few commercial real estate experts who will be talking the current market condition in Sacramento area, East Bay, San Francisco, and also South Bay.
Wonderful. See, you're busy. So if someone wanted to participate, do they go to your website here, or you put something in the chat? Right?
So I put down the Zoom link on there. So if you guys,
okay.
Just feel free to hop in.
And just so everyone knows, and this is something that I learned a couple of weeks ago. And so in your chat box next to your name, you will see 3 dots. And so if you click on that, you can save your chat, in which you can save the information that Helen provided, and along with all the other stuff that's in chat. And so that's an easy way to save whatever's there. So, all right. Well, in closing, I just have a little quote here from Denzel Washington, if you know who that guy is. He says, "A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking, because her trust is not on the branch, but it's on his wings," which I think is a timely quote, because we shouldn't be afraid of what's happening out there. We should trust ourselves and our own instincts and our own experiences to get us through this and help our clients through this as well. And so again, Pinky, Anthony, Jamelyn, Helen, thank you so much for your time. wonderful. Each of you are amazing, and thank you so much for sharing all the information and for your time. And so, with that, we'll go ahead and close out the meeting, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.